Continuing with our Unit 3 videos, we're going to move on now to carbohydrates. Carbohydrates range from small sugar molecules, which are the monomers, to large polysaccharides. So anything that's built out of sugar, whether it's a single sugar or many sugars strung together, those all count as carbs. Carbs are all sugar-based. Sugar monomers are called monosaccharides. So saccharide means sugar and mono means one. So a single sugar molecule is a monosaccharide. Monosaccharides can be hooked together by dehydration reactions to form more complex sugars and polysaccharides. Now, sugars all have a similar chemical formula. They all have the pattern or the ratios, 1 carbon to 2 hydrogens to 1 oxygen. But you can multiply those ratios as many times as you want. So X times CH2O. So that means, like in glucose, we have C6H12O6. So sugars have the same number of carbons and oxygens and twice as many hydrogens as carbon. Okay, so if you have 6 carbons, you'll have 6 oxygens, and if you have 6 carbons, you'll have 12 hydrogens because that's double 6. Now you'll notice that fructose also is a 6-carbon sugar, and it has the same chemical formula, C6H12O6, but it only has 5 points to its little ring instead of 6 points and 6 sides to its ring. So because glucose and fructose have the same chemical formula, that means that they are isomers of each other. They have the same chemical formula, but in a different shape. The atoms are arranged in a different way. And the same thing with galactose. Galactose also is C6H12O6, right? But it's also an isomer just because these hydroxyl groups are both facing up instead of down. Sugars don't have to have 6 carbons as long as they maintain this ratio of carbon to hydrogen to oxygen. Many monosaccharides form rings. The ring diagram may be abbreviated by not showing the carbon atoms at the corners of the ring, and we've already discussed that, but I'm just going to show it really clearly here. So all the way on the left, you can see all the carbons numbered, and these are glucose. So these are all pictures of glucose, and you can see how they're successively more and more lazy ways of drawing this molecule. So the full way of drawing it is here on the left. Then in the middle, you see that the carbons have been left out. And then in the right, you see that even the hydroxyl groups were left out. Usually you'll see something more like this one in the center, more like this one. But biology textbooks will use this notation sometimes, especially if they've told you that they're talking about a 6-carbon sugar. But you can't figure out what molecule it is by looking at it. So they would have to tell you somewhere in the text. Right? So sugars can also be disaccharide. Di means 2. So mono means 1, di means 2, poly means many. You get different kinds of disaccharides depending on what monomers are joined to what. So for example, glucose and fructose joined together create sucrose. So this is an example of a dehydration reaction. So you have a hydroxyl group here and a hydrogen from this hydroxyl here, and you put that together and you get H2O. Water leaves, then you get this joining of the 2 molecules here. So maltose is what you get when you join 1 glucose and 1 more glucose. So nuts and seeds use maltose for sprouting energy. So they, little sprouts, they need a little energy boost when they first start growing, and that usually comes from maltose. Lactose, which is milk sugar, is what you get when you join galactose and glucose. And sucrose, we just covered glucose and fructose. Now, polysaccharides are many sugars mixed together or many sugars in a chain, because poly means many. So polysaccharides are macromolecules, huge molecules. They're polymers composed of thousands, perhaps, of monosaccharides linked together by dehydration reactions. So you can see starch and cellulose. Starch and cellulose are both chains of glucose. The only difference is in starch, all of the glucose are oriented the same way. So, this oxygen is facing up. Oops. The oxygen is facing up for every single one. So there's oxygen up, oxygen up, oxygen up. And in cellulose, there's this alternate orientation, or it's right side up, upside down, right side up, upside down. So oxygen is up, oxygen is down, oxygen is up. Now you know that starch contains a lot of energy. To extract that energy, what you have to do is break this large high energy molecule down into smaller pieces. By breaking these bonds, you will release energy from this molecule. So what are these polysaccharides used for by living organisms? Well, polysaccharides are often used by living things as batteries to store energy for later. So for example, the energy in sunlight is harnessed by plants and stored inside starch. So the sun's energy is used to build this high energy molecule. The sun goes down, but the plant doesn't die. Why? Because the sun's energy, it has stored in its body in this high energy molecule called starch. It can use that starch all night to drive life-maintaining processes. So it builds starch during the day with the energy of the sunlight. The sunlight's energy is packed into the starch, and then at night, the plant can break down the starch and release that energy to drive its life-giving biological processes. Now, animals use glycogen for energy storage. You find glycogen in the liver and a few other tissues of the body. Glycogen is more instant ready for use than fat is. You don't need to eat all day, do you? You don't have to always be putting food in your mouth. An hour after eating, your blood sugar level drops, but that signals your liver to release more sugar from glycogen chains into your blood. And that maintains your blood sugar at a steady state. If not for chemical batteries like carbohydrates and fats, we'd need to be eating constantly, just like we're breathing constantly, to keep energy flow to all of our cells in order to stay alive. But instead of eating constantly, we eat all at once. We store the energy for later in the form of glycogen and fats, and then we can release that energy when we need it. Polysaccharides can also be used for structural supports instead of for energy storage. So we talked about cellulose already, which is also a polymer of glucose. And this forms plant cell walls. This is structural, and you find it in places like celery. Celery has those indigestible strings attached to it. Those are made out of cellulose. And then chitin. Now, chitin is only found in two places in nature. It's found in the cell walls of fungi for structural support of the cell, and also in insect exoskeletons, in that hard outer shell of insects. It's not made out of glucose, but other kinds of sugar monomers. Okay, so we all know that there's energy in sugar, but why? Well, it's because there's energy stored in the covalent bonds of the molecule. Now, there are exactly the same elements and almost exactly the same bonds in both starch and cellulose. This tells you that starch and cellulose contain the same number of calories. But we don't think of cellulose as having calories. We think of it as indigestible and calorie absent. So why do we think cellulose has no calories? The enzyme that breaks apart these molecules has to fit the shape of these molecules exactly. These two molecules, starch and cellulose, they are slightly different shapes. We have enzymes in our digestive system that are designed to fit onto the shape of starch, and that allows those enzymes to break down starch and extract the energy from the starch. But we don't have any enzymes that are capable of binding, of matching the shape of cellulose. So we have no enzymes that can fit onto cellulose and break it apart. So it's not that cellulose doesn't have calories, it's that we cannot access those calories because we don't have the proper tools. We don't have the proper digestive enzymes to access those calories. There are organisms that can extract energy from cellulose, but we cannot. So here you can see that the oxygens are highlighted, so you can see their orientation. You can see that starch and glycogen are almost exactly the same molecule. It's just that glycogen has these branches, while starch is a single line. Here's cellulose with its alternate orientation. It's got up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, right? So that's that alternating structure. And then chitin is here. Chitin is made out of glucosamine. Glucosamine is glucose with an amino group here. So it has this little extra bit that make it not quite the same as glucose. And this, again, is structural. So crustacean shells are made out of chitin. Polysaccharides are typically hydrophilic or water-loving. So bath towels, for example, are often made out of cotton, which is mostly made out of cellulose, and therefore water absorbent because they are polar. They attract water with their electromagnetic forces. Remember the lessons of adhesion in the water chemistry video. So what makes sugars hydrophilic? It's that it is polar. So let's take a look at what on the sugar molecule makes it polar. It's this hydroxyl group. Remember, oxygen is an electron hog relative to hydrogen. And so when oxygen and hydrogen are covalently bound together, oxygen is going to keep those electrons and it'll have a partially negative charge, and the hydrogen a partially positive charge. The negative charges on the oxygen and the positive charges on the hydrogen attract the negative and positive charges on water molecules.